Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another Historical Humans Reacts. And today we are going to the Middle East, where a 7,000-year-old tomb in Oman holds dozens of prehistoric skeletons.
Yep.
Ooh, a tomb
Mhm.
holding skeletons. How
Yeah.
surprising.
Yes. And I know we said dozens of skeletons, and one of the first things I want to point out before we do anything else is that um this burial, this tomb, this was not so much a mass grave as it was a graveyard. Um, these bodies were not buried on top of each other or thrown together. They were interred individually with individual honors, grave goods, and the like. Although, as I'm sure we'll get to later, this appears to be sort of a reinterment for a lot of the people here, as the bones are not laid out as in the same way that they would be if you put a body in.
Yeah. So,
Yeah,
kind of interesting.
which is just it's very fun because it's like you would think one thing if you heard multiple burials and piles of bone. You would think this is a mass grave, and it's really not, and that's the fun part.
And this tomb in question is near Nafun, the country's central Al Wusta province, is one of the oldest human made structures in Oman. So it's pretty close to the coast, but it's otherwise in the middle of the stony desert.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that's really perplexing for archaeologists, because it's clear that this is an important site, yet there, unlike many of these necropoli, there's no adjacent, like, oh, this is where the people were living before they ended up in the ground. There's not really a reason for people to be here other than burying these dead.
It's interesting too because there are no Bronze Age or older graves in the area, and that's part of what they talk about. The one of the archaeologists from Czech Republic Institute of Archaeology in Prague, they're the ones who are actually running these excavations, and they're in their third year currently. Unfortunately, I don't speak Czech, and I really would butcher their names if I tried, but they're leading excavations, and the tomb itself was discovered about 10 years ago using satellite photography, which is really fascinating. There's a whole branch of archaeology now that's stemming from space, and I could go on a whole tangent about that. I bought a book and I've been reading about it. But they're basically using satellite imagery to look at remote parts of the world to try and find evidence of human occupation, which is what led to the discovery of this site. They were looking at satellite imagery and they found these tombs which date back to about 5,000 BC and 4,600 BC. So
Yeah,
quite a
yeah,
quite a hefty chunk of time ago.
yeah. And these, we mentioned that there's no Bronze Age sites and settlements in here, but I believe with those dates, those would be Neolithic burials, unless they found grave goods to prove otherwise, which I didn't see when I looked through this article, but I could have made such a mistake.
Yeah, it's kind of
Um,
interesting. And looking at the photos here, real quick, I just want to point out the camping one. That is very true to my heart. Most archaeologists have camped on excavations, and it's kind of one of the tenets of the field, I suppose.
mhm. It's definitely one of the less fun ones.
I would disagree. I think it's a lot of fun.
My back hurts. Now go sleep on the ground. Yeah, I'm 9 feet tall, people.
Not
The
quite
field
9 feet,
not
but
the best part.
I think camping's
Yeah.
fun. But on a different note, the tomb's walls were made with rows of thin stones called slabs, or stone slabs called ashlars, and have two circular burial chambers inside, which are subdivided further.
Yeah, I know. I know. So that's why I'm tapping my hair, letting you know. But yeah. So the chambers are subdivided, and I believe each of the individual burials are placed within each chamber, and they are separated. Uh, and their remains are laid out effectively, where there is a skull placed at where a head would reasonably go at one end, and then the bones are um arranged so they all point towards the center of the chamber, all the long bones of the body that were brought with the skulls. So the skulls are basically against the outer wall, and all the bones point towards the center of these circular chambers, which is a very fun sort of combination ossuary tomb that appears to be in play here in Neolithic Oman.
And it,
Uh,
it goes to show too, with the way the burials were placed, that they most likely let the bodies decompose at a different location before being finally deposited here. And then another thing that they highlight in the article is the later, I believe it's Samad culture. Yeah, Samad culture lived thousands of years later, also buried their dead nearby. So it was a pretty good place to drop your dead if you needed to.
yeah. Yeah, and the fact that the dead were decomposed prior to interment does make some sense, given the fact that archaeologists have found nothing in the vicinity to indicate that the people that were buried here lived in this spot, but rather this seems to be more of a spot that people sailed or walked along the coast till they came to, and then deposited their dead before moving on.
They do believe that there might be an ancient settlement somewhere nearby.
Yeah,
But with given the
that
sand dunes in the desert, it's
it's not something we're likely to find if it's even there.
see, I'm kind of in
I
the other ballpark. I think it's more likely that we're going to find it. I just think it's a matter of time. I think
Yeah,
they found the graveyard. They haven't found the city yet.
and I for one am and in the absence of the city, I'm gonna go on the semi nomadic circuit here and say that this was just the point where they came to drop off the dead before moving on to another seasonal settlement.
Well, so the interesting thing too is they're actually doing isotope analysis on the bones. So what they do is they look at the carbon and nitrogen content of the bones and of the teeth if they're present, and from there you can actually tell if someone what the diet consisted of. You can tell if they were that semi-nomadic group because your carbon and nitrogen input would actually vary depending on the region and your diet.
And the best part of all that too is this is near the coast, which means that you got fish. Fish are wonderful for tracking down where people were when they ate things, when they got these carbon isotopes in their teeth. Fish are wonderful for that. If you've calibrated for it. Otherwise, they're hell.
Which
But yeah,
here they're going to be calibrated for because they're
yeah,
looking for it.
they're seeing it coming. This isn't you know this isn't what do you mean he ate fish in Utah?
But the interesting thing is, there's a lot of evidence. Well, and also the Salt Lake has fish, but
Yeah, I'm talking about
um,
Utah.
the what they're doing too is a part of these expeditions. They've also discovered a stone axe that dates back to early migrations out of Africa between 300,000 and 1.3 million years ago. So they're finding a lot of cool stuff. It just looks like this is one of the more underutilized and under researched areas.
This is definitely a route people were passing along for a good portion of time, which makes sense, right? You're coming up out of Africa, either you know boating into Oman, or walking through Gaza and then following the coast back south.
And then about 2,000 years ago, there were rows of stone triliths that were found built throughout Oman that were inscripted with names, with symbols. So there's just a lot of cool stuff out of here. And, you don't really hear much about Oman or about the stuff that's coming out. And they have the picture of the hand axe. That is one sexy hand axe.
Please do not make that reference. For those of you wondering, type the comment "sexy hand axe" and then Google it in terms of archaeology.
It's
So much is wrong.
it, it
So much is wrong.
it's an archaeology theory that basically said a male's sexual prowess were shown off by their hand axe. The nicer the hand axe, the more virulent they were. You know, kind of similar to how guys in modern day will dress in fancy clothes or expensive clothes because
Yeah, it's the
it's psychological, it's human nature. But
it's the flashy car theory of just the I don't even know cars that well to do this
like the
right. But
Lamborghini, the Ferrari, the Rolls Royce.
yeah. Basically, I have a Mustang, you have a Camry, therefore I'm sexier than you. Not compensating for anything.
And on that bombshell, we're going to wrap up today's episode. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like down below and to subscribe. And comment sexy hand X if you made it this far. Thank you guys for watching.